Good evening, YouTube. Good evening. Oh my God, my hair. Listen, disregard, I got a lot going on, but I like to make sure that I keep my word, which was that I am going to come online to do my videos no matter what. Sometimes I forget the intensity of this situation and what other people are going through. And so I make it my duty to remind myself. I watch things every once in a while. I look up other gang stalking videos. When I get a chance, I look up other TIs and just kind of see what they're talking about, what they're going through. I also feel like it gives me a little bit of an idea of, how to focus what I'm talking about, because I feel like what I'm talking about is not just like, I know I have a specific experience, obviously. Excuse me. I know I have a specific experience, but I know other people are experiencing other things as well. And I just recognize, all of us, our gang stalking journey takes on different sort of like flavors, I want to say. Like some people, there's tons of V2K, they're hearing voices. Some people, it's more extreme physical gang stalking, like they're really pushing people to the limit. They feel like it's a safety concern. I've heard of examples of Hollywood gang stalking where, like, so this one guy had this story and he was explaining to a friend that they came into his house, they fixed things that were broken. They came into his car, they fixed things that had been broken on the car for a while. So they did things to get his awareness, but things that people wouldn't believe. Because imagine going to the police and being like, the left door on my car doesn't work and now it's working. The police are going to be like, well, you should be grateful that somebody fixed your car, if that's a concern. But it's a safety concern and a violation, but they can't do anything. So this is the kind of thing that it just take. Even on my car, I'm not gonna lie, I have a older car and the dashboard never worked for a while. I took it to the dealership and I said, how much is it to fix it? And they're like, it's $5,000 to replace the whole thing. Like, you could spend, I think it was like, I could spend like 2,500 and they could try to fix it, but there's no guarantee. Or I could just replace the whole thing and it would be $5,000. And I'm like, neither option makes sense for me. And I left it. And when I started turning off my cell phone or not walking, like not moving around with my cell phone, when I started being hard to track, all of a sudden I started the car and it worked perfectly. That thing hadn't worked for, I want to say since 2018, 2019. It hadn't worked, and all of a sudden, so it's like, but the thing about the dashboard in the car, so I had a newer car and that car had like such advanced like Bluetooth and whatever in it that I knew they were tracking me through it, because that car was connected to the mobile app on the cell phone and then all this other stuff. So it was just like, I was just like, you know what, I turn it off, I keep it off. I know that they fixed it to track me, is what I'm saying. So I just know that everybody's gang stalking situation kind of, it looks different just depending on, I guess, the specialty of the person running the show. In my situation, the person running the show, the chief gang stalker, their specialty is with black magic. That's the kind of stuff that they're into. And so that's the bulk of what I've had to deal with. I've had to deal with, or what normal people, what you guys on here call energy work. So nonstop, been inundated. Now, the other thing, I was watching this video of this lady early on, and she was kind of talking about like things that were happening to her, things that were happening to her face and whatnot. And I don't know what you guys call that sort of thing, but you know, for me, where I come from, this is spell work. This is what you would call black magic to us, through and through. Like, so with us, you know, well, with me, I'll say, it was easy for me to recognize it just culturally as what it is. But also, it's like then it opens your mind naturally to remedies for it. And that's what I provide. That's what I tell people. And, you know, my following has obviously very slowly grown, but I guess that's YouTube. That's any social media platform the last, you know, 3-4 months. And I was thinking to myself today, because, you know, my spirituality is not just a big part of my gang stalking journey. It is the reason I survived, is because I have a very strong spiritual practice and belief, I guess you'll say. So I do put that in my branding on my page. So somebody commented on this trailer video that I put up today, and I was like, and I recognize this as like one of the first followers that I had. And in my mind, I'm just like, you know what? I'm so proud of people who keep an open mind to what I believe in. I think sometimes like we get really sucked into imagery, and you know, I've had the opportunity to not just explain kind of what I believe in and how it's been so instrumental in getting me through this nonsense, but you know, hopefully people have had an opportunity to see like my personality, to see, you know, what I stand for and where I'm coming from. But in a sense, I was like, I'm proud of this guy for like not being scared, not because that's one thing that I would think people would be, even with myself. When I first spiritually woke up, I thought to myself, I wonder why I'm not scared, because that would be something that you would naturally be scared of. But you know, I think that's the main thing that I constantly want to talk about, is just like, let me give you an example. So somebody came, a contractor came into my home like 2 days ago. And before he walked in, I said to him, I'm like, there's an altar in here. And he goes, what's that? And I just said, never mind. Because like, how do you even begin to explain that? But it's like, that's how far we are away from the way we should be living. And that's terrifying when you really think about it. I am now of the notion, I know that there are spiritual leaders. I'm giving personal opinion now. This is personal opinion. I don't know if, you know, God, the Most High, has a different opinion of it. This is just my personal opinion, okay? I don't think we should be paying for spirituality. I think spirituality should be something that people explore themselves. It's a personal journey. And so asking someone to do something for you that you can do yourself, and then paying for something like that, like paying for prayers, is to me crazy. So that's number one. So I think everybody should have an altar. I think everybody should have a spiritual practice. I think everybody should be able to do the basics for themselves. That's number one. I think if everybody could do the basics for themselves, that people would be more responsible with spell work, because there would be basic things that would just be known. For example, if you're going to send me negative energy, then you're going to know that I have the ability to send it back to you, to return you back your energy. And then maybe you'd be a little bit more responsible with the way that you send energy back and forth. But people really depend on other people not knowing, first of all, that it's spell work. Second of all, how to handle it, how to clean things, how to connect, how to defend themselves. And so we find ourselves in a situation where it's like, you have like a minority of people who feel superior to other people and who are abusive. It's like once they figure a couple times that they get away with something, they get a God complex. And they go so far with it that they stop believing in actual God. And the one thing about God is God truly is perfect. Like nothing is by accident, nothing is delayed, nothing is too long. That's not how spirit operates. So I was reading a caption today and it said, if the good law and the good orishas take too long to defend you, then your best option is black magic. And that is false. That is false. That's the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing, because you're going to incur bad karma. You can't turn to black, like whatever it is, whatever your situation is, you're here to learn something from it. And this is the thing, if you're not being, first of all, again, my opinion, I don't think spirit has to rescue anybody from anything. I think that you're left in a situation because there's something to learn, or you don't even get into the situation at all if it's not for you. If there is gonna be an accident on a street and you're not supposed to be there, it is up to your spirit guides to deviate you from that road so that you don't even go down that path in general. You don't find yourself anywhere where you're gonna be in a situation that is not meant for you. They're gonna make someone call you, they're gonna make the kid forget something at school, they're gonna make something happen so you don't go down there at all. You don't even end up on paths that are not for you. And that's really important to think about and realize in the gang stalking journey, because I think in everything, every time I find TIs on the timeline, there's a lot of these conversations that are similar. So yes, it is absolutely narcissistic abuse. Yes, there's all this information and it kind of comes from a certain vantage point, but we're missing solutions. We're missing the part about rebuilding. We're missing the part about getting up and walking away. How do we close the cycle? And when you get into a cycle, there's a certain amount of time you have to be there. Cycles, they last a couple of years. Like, you got to go through it. There's lessons to learn. There's people to meet. There's character development that needs to happen. But you prolong the cycle if you're not learning the lessons. Now, here's the thing. It's possible to get to a point with a cycle that's very difficult. And I think, again, personal opinion, you may not have learned all the lessons. So when you're tested outside of the cycle, you find yourself in a situation where you fail that test and now you have to repeat that cycle. So this is not the cycle you want to repeat. I've heard about people getting gang stalked twice. This is not the cycle you want to repeat. You want to pass this test and leave. Like, I swear, could you imagine if you broke out of gang stalking, you got a relief to your situation, you're barely getting back on your feet, and then it starts again? This is the thing about when a cycle starts again. It is more intense than the last time, because it's like you really didn't get what you had to learn. And you will go through the cycle and you will think that the cycle is about the bad characters in the cycle that are hurting you, that are doing things to you, and you're not realizing that the cycle is about you. You have to change. This cycle is about you. Tough pill to swallow. I'm going to give an example to talk about what I mean. So there was a reader. I talked about her before. I used to shout her out on here. I used to say, oh, it's because of her I woke up. I'm not even gonna, many people woke me up, so it's not credit to just her. But she had some instrumental messages that were very important for me. So she talked about when she was waking up, and she talked about the fact that she was gang stalked by a church and it was very difficult. She found out they were doing spell work in the church and all of this stuff, which is fine. And so she got out of it. Now, when you're in the middle of your gang stalking journey, and you hear another person say that they were gang stalked and their cycle got closed, there's a little bit in you like, oh God. First of all, you're like, thank God that people are exiting this. That's why I tell everybody that listens to me all the time, this is BS that they tell you that gang stalking will never stop. It's complete BS. All the tarot readers were gang stalked. There might be like little sprinklings here and there, like that one random person, that one random idiot, or maybe it might be your PTSD, but it has to close. What? It has to close. So that point aside, so she was done with it. Now she's reading, now she's moving about the world, whatever. And I think that what she went through with me was a test. It was a test of her character. She failed with flying colors because it's like, I was very clearly somebody who was in her audience, listening to her, getting guidance from her, giving her her props, showing her real love. I even sent her a dress from my store for her to wear. I was gonna make her one of the influencers. She sent back a video of poor quality with, when I say pornographic lyrics, I mean like literally like pornographic lyrics, like explicit lyrics. Like this was the kind of lyrics like you had to go out of your way to search a song like that. It wasn't even like a popular artist. It was like you had to go out of your way to get this. This was an old school song. There was just so many signs. She was always hostile. She was throwing words at me, and you could tell it was like, I could tell it was directed at me when she was doing her readings. And I just gave it to God because I was like, you know what? That's one thing that I don't do. When I feel like people are ordained by God or God's involved with them in any way, it's like, that's for God to do. I don't get involved in it. But I was like, listen, that's your people. I didn't know that people that believe in what I believe in behave like that. I was mortified. I was embarrassed. Like it was the part of God being involved. Like if this was just a random person, but it's the respect that I gave her because she was associated with the mother energy, what I believe in. And so I was shocked because, you know, for me, I have so much respect for God that I wouldn't, and my respect extends from outside of me to like, what would God do in this situation, or how should I be handling situations or whatever. And I'm not always perfect, for sure. We're human. We're trying to heal. And sometimes, you know, God will tell me forgive something or forgive someone or do something better. And sometimes I'm like, listen, I'm doing it because you're telling me to do it, but I don't really want to do it. I'm just doing it for you, basically, but I'm going to work on it. In the meantime that I'm doing it for you, I'm going to work on truly healing this wound because I don't want to move forward with this. It's not a nice way to feel. And so, you know, we have our little celebrations, and she gets happy when I get over things and I forgive people, or I get over losing things, or whatever the case is. It's like she's encouraging me. But that one, it was like, it was difficult. Like I felt like even God was sad and disappointed with that situation. And the crazy part about it, it's like, this is one situation. First of all, you're not supposed to hurt people who are ordained by God. You're not supposed to prey on them. You're not supposed to do anything even if it's in retaliation. Let God handle things like that. Seriously. So I already know that because I've seen how people who hurt me, what they go through. So for me, I just kind of left it. And there's a lot of times I can't say much. I couldn't even in prayer say much about it. It's just like I release it. I can't even fathom. It's such a betrayal. Like it feels like a community betrayal. It's like, I don't know what to say. But this girl was actively working with people, the same people that are trying to destroy my life. And I got an email from her either yesterday morning or the morning before at 6 a.m. on an email account that I never gave her. And so I'm like, whoa, she's deep with them. So I say all that to say, because I'm being gang stalked, coming from being forcefully recruited to be a drug mule for the cartel. So the people that she's associating with are cartel. And so they gang stalk from that place. And her readings that she did before that stopped me from going down basically costed those people a lot. Like, I mean, even in money. And I just thought they're gonna destroy this person from the inside. And for me, I'm just like, to have lost protection like that is one thing. To lose God's protection is one thing. To lose guidance, to lose insight. It's like people will come on their platforms and they'll keep a brave face, but trust me, behind closed doors, when you lose connection, to me, I'm just like, I couldn't personally imagine it. I feel like losing the connection without the whole cartel thing or the gang stalker thing would have been bad enough. To lose connection with God for any reason is bad enough. It's the ultimate punishment. But to lose the connection and then end up inside of there, that is the karma. That is the So that is a repetition of the gang stalking cycle, but worse. But worse. It's like once you're in there, it's like money doesn't matter, status doesn't matter, position doesn't matter. Once you belong to them, it's almost like being a part of like the military where they have their own police, they have their people don't get involved. People don't get involved. Like the police don't want to touch it. They don't get involved. That's like internally they're supposed to. But look, when you get gang stalked and you say you're a drug mule, do they run to your help, to your aid? So now imagine that where it's like, no, they're saying to those people, no, this person's cartel. So that's it's like getting involved with them, working with them is almost like taking an oath. It's I don't know how to say it. It's almost like once you, even if it's just like, okay, I'll just try for a bit. Like that's how they take it. They own you now. Once you negotiate with them and you set the price and you take the first payment, it's like you're binded in that thing. So this is what I mean when I say, as you go through your gang stalking journey, do not rush for it to be over. Take your time and learn your lessons that you need to learn, because you do not want to repeat this cycle. When cycles repeat, they come back worse than they were before. And of all the cycles in your life that you want to close and close forever, I would say this would be one. You never want to see this again. Because this is the thing. The cartel will make being gang stalked by the church look like a cakewalk. You can't imagine. I can't imagine. In a situation like that, look at that. That's like double trouble. Like, what is the point of praying down on someone like that? Like, it's even to the point where it's just like, it's you let it go. As much as it bothers you, as much as, well, it bothered me for a couple days. I'm not gonna lie. I was like I was stunned. I was shocked. I saw it from a mile away, but it's like that was one of them I didn't want to believe. And so it's like they did it to bother me, but it's like that's punishment. That's payback. Like, getting this person involved in that is payback. That's how I see it. That's revenge. So take your time with your journey. Learn your lessons. If you have things in you that need to be corrected, it's not that God will not love you or see value in you despite your flaws. It's just that these things will hold you back. These things will block you. And there's no way around learning the lessons. I do not like tests and I do not like to be tested, but the tests, they come and you got to recognize the test when it comes. And you're like, this would have been my old way of dealing with something and I need to find a new way. There's plenty of times I find myself going down a little alley of something that I should have learned, and I have to reel myself back and I have to continue doing it and continue working on it until I get myself to a point where it's not my knee-jerk reaction to go to the old behavior. Like, I might not be all the way there, but at least I'm aware. And we all have these behaviors. Like, one of them for me is dealing with, and I think it's not for me, I think it's for all of us, dealing with this persecution is ridiculous. You have to learn to walk a middle path with this, and this middle path thing is crazy. It's very difficult to find yourself in a place where you're acknowledging that what has happened to you deserves punishment, but you don't want to be hateful. You don't want to lose your conscience. You don't want to lose your humanity. You don't want to turn into a dark person. You don't want to be a person who takes revenge into your own hands. You want to be a person who, I mean, obviously we all want our peace, but you really just, the middle path is difficult. It takes time and it takes practice. It takes conserving your good heart, but not being, too nice, too loving, too pure of spirit, that you don't defend yourself or you don't stand up for things that are right, because that's part of what you're here for. Now, there's another thing that I want to talk about with V2K, which I think that, okay, so this is my opinion again on how I feel like this gang stalking thing has happened for people, all right? So I feel like gang stalking is sort of a journey of initiation that happens, and it happens, this is the way the universe designs it, orchestrates it. I always say with the V2K thing, right? I always wondered, like, how does this start? Like, how does it work? How are they sending these messages? How are they tracking you? How are they reading it? Are they seeing it on a computer? Like, is it through your cell phone? If you went into the forest with no devices, would it still happen? My opinion is V2K is your clairaudience coming online. It's your psychic abilities coming online. And they know that. The people who are gang stalking you know that. I think it's not, I know that the people gang stalking you, they are in societies, they are in brotherhoods. They are 100%. They know that you're coming online. And so it's almost like they want to defeat you, but it's the gang stalking that helps you come online. It's like you're in such pain. It's like it frustrates you. It breaks you out of what you're into. Your eyes open up and you're tapping into things, but you don't know. You don't know how to interpret it. You also don't know how to fight it, because maybe you haven't been groomed enough coming on here. If I was not groomed by spirit coming on here, and I spoke about that before in other lives, if I wasn't at a point where spirit was pointing me in the right direction, like opening up my mind to mystical ideas and spiritual things, when I got here, I wouldn't know what to do or think, because spiritual and energetic things are happening, but you don't know, your first instinct is not to look for spiritual help. Your first instinct is to probably panic. I don't know what people go through who are not open to the spirit. And the worst thing that can happen to you is your gifts come online and you don't know who and what you are. You don't know what your purpose is, because you're coming into your purpose. And I think that's how a lot of people get lost. That's how a lot of people get stuck in this. And they don't know what to do. So a lot of people turn to spirit, but they turn to Christianity. And that's not where the answers are. And they point, and it's like a lot of fake gang stalking pages want to point you to Christianity on purpose, when your purpose is spiritual. These people communicate telepathically, and they're communicating with you telepathically. They're coming to you in dreams, and they're manipulating your dreams, and all of this stuff is happening. It's all telepathic. But you have to walk through the adequate steps one at a time. Well, maybe sometimes not even one at a time. Sometimes I felt like I was walking multiple steps at a time at times. But you have to kind of go through the cycles, and you have to close them. You have to close them. You have to find the answers. And sometimes an answer is in forgiveness. Sometimes an answer is not reacting the way you used to act before. Sometimes an answer is in healing. Sometimes an answer is in seeking forgiveness for, or at least feeling remorse, you know, like starting off that way. And then all of a sudden it's like you do it, you achieve it. Let's say with forgiveness, you achieve the forgiveness, you achieve the enlightenment, you look at things from a higher perspective, you see the reason something had to happen. And then the next day or the next coming days, it's like the sun comes out in your life. Things are different, things are working, you're seeing improvement, you're getting peace. And there's layers to the peace that you attain in this situation. Like there's layers. You think, oh my God, the gang stalking stopped, like the street stuff stopped, and then this stuff stops, and then that stuff stops. And it's just like, even if it's so crazy that even if, excuse me, something doesn't actually stop, your reaction to it changes. The impact that it used to have on you, it doesn't have that impact anymore. And it's like, so you changed. If the same thing's happening and you're not responding the same way, then you've changed. And that's the place that we all want to be in. We all want to get to the point where whether or not gang stalking is happening, it's not having the same effect on us that it was having before. So, you know, I just put up a new trailer today and I look at myself in that video. By the way, that was like a behind the scenes video for like content that I was shooting. I haven't been that person since like 2016. 2016. I haven't been that person who would get up and do makeup and get dressed up to the point like people in my city, I was like, you know, like they'd look at me, they'd be like, really? I'm like, yeah, I have a huge closet with like full of stuff. Like they'd be like, really? But it's not, I was that person. I just haven't been that person. So really, I feel like my journey started from 2014 has been the beginning of my cycle. And you yourself, you can probably look back to before you got gang stalked and you can pinpoint, like, I officially started being followed around in 2020. Early 2020, I want to say, is when they started being curious about me. And but before that, I want to say, so 6 years before that, I was being prepared for 2020, I would say. I talk about going to a psychic and them telling me that something was going to happen, but not going to detail, and the psychic being so disturbed and so teary-eyed, and panicking and freaking out and following me to the door and begging me to like cleanse me and all this kind of stuff. And she's like, you're just here for a message. You're not really like, you don't believe in any of this stuff. I didn't believe in tarot, psychics, nothing. I was just curious. Something in me was pushing me like, I wonder if I should get a psychic reading, but like I was afraid of this. So this started in 2014, and it was like slowly but surely I would be like walk down this aisle. Like back at that time, I used to watch the Kardashians. I cannot stand that stuff now. I used to watch the Kardashians, and I remember they went to a psychic and the psychic was saying something to them, and that was the bridge for spirituality, where it was like, okay, I like the Kardashians and they went to a psychic, so maybe I would be open to this idea. Maybe it's not so crazy. And that's the thing. Your spirit is pushing you to think about ideas that maybe you would not have considered, because that's where the healing is. That's where the solutions are. And if you're being gang stalked, the solutions are in the spiritual path, because it's the path that you're supposed to be on. And if you don't get on that path, there's nowhere else to go. One thing about cycles, there's only one door. There's only one door to go through. And if you don't figure out what that door is, you're going to be in a maze. You're just going to be stumbling around. And this is not the place you want to stay longer than you should. I figured this out pretty early on, and so I just wanted to learn my lessons. And it didn't matter to me who else around me wasn't learning lessons. And you know, at some points I used to think to myself, my God, am I the only one listening to God right now? Not I'm saying this as in the most humble way possible. Like, I'm like, do these people not realize this is not working in their favor? One thing about me, if I do something and it backfires on me and it, like, I don't want to do it again because it's painful. I want to figure out what it is. I'll be in the spirit apologizing, like, hey, I didn't even know, you know. So I wanted to learn. I was eager to learn. I'm still eager to learn. And it's so crazy. Like, the person that I am now is, when I see things happening to people, even people who hurt me, or people that, it's like, I'm just like, I take a lesson from it. Like, okay, you know what? I get it. I witnessed this because I understand. Let me tell you, from that reader, this is what I understand. I understand that anybody at all, anybody can find themselves in a problem with spirit. It doesn't matter how blessed you are, how ordained you are, how special you are, anybody can find themselves in a problem with spirit. And so that was the lesson for me. Even whether or not it was my lesson or not, I like taking lessons off of other people now. Why? Because life is getting, this stuff is painful. I don't know what people are thinking. This is painful. This is painful stuff. And I hate feeling like I'm in a maze, knocking my head against every wall, trying to figure out, like, where am I supposed to go, because things are not working. And there's some things you have to stick at it and build it, and it'll take long to grow. And there's some things that is just not meant to be. And you have to be able to use your discernment and say, what should I keep pushing at that needs my dedication? And what should I just stop doing because it's not working? First of all, if it's backfiring, if it's causing you pain, and I'm not talking about, like, I'll talk about today. So all my devices are hacked. If I'm putting together work and, you know, somebody is blocking the work in some way, but there's another way to do it because I got to do it, I'll do the other way. It'll go through fine. And I'm just like, okay, I just have to persevere. But if I'm doing something and it's like, not only is it not showing results, but it's like, it's definitely backfiring. It's definitely opening a gateway to people having access to me to do, like, that is very clearly something that I should not be doing. And so there are things that in the way that I work that I realize, like, this is no longer for me. Like, I cannot work this way anymore. That cycle is closed. And I have to just take the lesson. And it sucks because I'm like, okay, well, how else can I go about this? You have to be very cognizant throughout your journey and throughout what you're going through to really think about what you need to learn. Spirituality is not necessarily like Christianity, where it's like, I gotta be a good person and things are gonna work. Part of this path, part of you coming online is because you are being put constantly in situations with people that God needs to get in contact with. God needs to, God, first of all, God utilizes all of us. We are all in service, whether our actions are good or bad. And people may or may not know that. Hold on, Safi, can you pass me my lip gloss, please? The pink one. Whether or not you understand that you're in service, it doesn't matter. Because both the TI and gang stalkers are teaching each other a lesson here. You're meant to get through this. You're not meant to stay here. And I keep repeating that. A lot of people, I'm sorry, I gotta put my lip gloss on. I hate licking my lips. I can't do that for an hour. A lot of people get into this situation and, you know, they become tarot readers after. They step into some sort of spiritual calling. And if you're a TI, I want to say you probably have a spiritual calling as well. And you got to figure out what it is. You got to figure out what it is. And that's between you and spirit. And you got to open up. And this is part of me coming on here. And originally when I was going to come on here, I wasn't going to talk about my spiritual journey because I didn't want to scare anyone. I didn't know how people were going to take it. And then I came on here and I saw the tarot, the targeted individual community was full of spirituality. I was like, oh, okay, perfect. But it was full of Christianity. And That's not the way either. This is not a religious path. This is a path where spirit will teach you the truth. This is not something where you come in with your own ideas. I'm still learning. There's things that I still learn. And when something needs to be changed and something needs to be learned, spirit will do something to make the shift where you learn, oh, that's how it was supposed to be. Oh, that's how I was supposed to do it. And you learn by trial and error. Trial and error sucks to learn. I promise you, you want a manual for everything, but trial and error is supposed to really sink the lesson in. You get your hand burned, trust me, you're not going to touch the stove again. If somebody tells you that the stove is hot, maybe there's some people who will listen because they'd prefer to hear it from someone, but majority of people are still going to touch it. And there's going to be people who are going to touch it like 2-3 times anyway, even though they got burnt the first time. That's how gang stalkers are. They're getting burned and they're going to continue doing it. They're going to continue. If they can't do it, they're going to find other people to do it. And they're going to wait for life to beat them down into a pulp before they get it. So it's like, just learn the lessons, please. Go through the journey. It is a journey. You're going to come out of this journey and you have to know who you are in the spirit after the journey, in the spirit. Not necessarily, you're being put through something and you're facing so many supernatural events. People are saying they're on a government watch list. People are saying, what the hell does the government want to just watch a random person for? Do you know it takes money to watch people? Watching you for what? I've been surveilled my whole life, whatever. These ideas are planted by the gang stalking community. This is nonsense. The government is not just surveilling you for no reason. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying more than likely, this is a spiritual thing. More than likely, these are spiritual societies that are doing this stuff. In my opinion, this is probably secret societies that are doing this stuff. I'll tell you why. Well, I'm not going to tell you guys why. Not right now anyway, but there's a reason I'm saying it. In my case. All right? So I don't like to come on here and just regurgitate things because they sound like they make sense. Like, for example, there's this one reader that she'd talk about Chinese hackers. And so when I come on my social medias, I'll see like ads in Chinese and all this kind of stuff. I still don't believe the Chinese hacker. It's the same fucking idiot. It's the same idiot. It's not no Chinese hacker. It's just like when I see, if I'm talking about something or I'm posting about something to get me to stop or to get me to be scared. And this was how it started in the beginning. It was like all these followers from these fake pages from Brazil, or all these it's like liking all these posts in Portuguese or whatever. You think I really think that a cartel boss is, with all the things that they probably have to do, is sitting on a phone liking pictures on my page when they already paid someone to do this job? You really think I think that? Like, come on. If I paid someone to do something, I expect them to do it. I'm not going to go sit on the person's page and do Mickey Mouse petty nonsense myself. That just comes with being a leader. You put in somebody's hands to be a janitor to sweep the floor. It doesn't matter how good or bad they're doing it. You're not going to pick up the broom and do it. You might tell them to do a better job. You might fire them and hire someone else. You're not going to come yourself. So it's like, it's a scare tactic. This is what they do first. They implant a silly idea because they know people are grasping for answers. They implant a silly idea and then they try to make the idea make sense. You got to use your discernment. In this community, once they start surrounding you, everything around you seems fake. So you really have to be able to break away from that and have some independence of thought. Now, as far as people accessing my energy and my spirit, I had to break out of that as well. And everything is tied to learning your lessons. Everything is tied to learning your lessons. It doesn't matter how much energy work you know, what sophisticated this and that you know. Listen, how do you as a human being think that you're going to beat the spirit world, beat the universe, beat energy. Who cares like how much spell work and how many books you read and whatever. These books were written by people who still access that energy from spirits. None of this matters. You got to learn your lessons. That's all it boils down to. You have to learn your lessons. And I cannot impress that enough. I've given so many different like tips of how to get out, and I wish there was just one. This is a very complex situation. It's multifaceted. As you learn the lessons and you become more ready to face the world outside, then you'll find yourself in a situation where you're ready to walk through that door. Then you'll find yourself in a situation where spirit trusts you enough to let you closer to the exit. You have to become the person that you're supposed to become, and they watch you closely. Like spirit listens to every thought. They are with you. It's a very closely controlled process. And the people gang stalking you, though you think they are your biggest threat, they are not. They are also in service of God as well. These people are coming around, and everything they beat out of your hand, you are meant to get rid of. Everything, every direction they push you in is a direction you're supposed to go. The things I'm doing now, I wanted to do this from before and it was blocked. It just wouldn't work. And I just had to pass certain, I can give specific examples. I wanted to start mailing lists with my customers. It wouldn't work. They blocked it. I wanted to start doing certain kind of content and whatever. It just wouldn't work. Every time I started, it would be knocked. I wanted to redo the website. I did the first photo shoot. Nothing worked after that. It was just like on and on and on and on and on, that things were just not working. And I finally got all the way here. And now all the things that weren't working are my only choice. I have to do these things. So it just goes to show you it's all about timing. And God was like, yeah, you know intuitively that you should be doing this, but not right now. You're not going to do that right now. So it's like I was watching, somebody commented on something I was watching today, and they said, this just keeps getting extended. I want to get out of this thing. Like, I don't know why this thing keeps getting extended. And I'm just like, you're not even supposed to be worrying about it being extended. It just needs to last as long as it needs to last. And I really got a lot of examples of that, of why I needed to learn those lessons when I started seeing how people would behave, and thinking to myself, if I don't get this very cutthroat attitude, I am not. I remember Beyonce was talking about that one time. She said that in business, you're not there to be friendly with people. You're there to conduct business. You're there for fair trade. So it's like she had to learn that herself, that she couldn't be like essentially a people pleaser. And I talked about it last night where I was saying, you're really going to have problems when you get successful. Like, if you do not know how to deal with aggression now, look at this. Look at it this way. You don't have anything for anyone to take from you right now, and somebody still saw the value in paying people to gang stalk you, right? You don't have much to take, and people still saw the value in paying someone to get rid of you. So this is the mind of people with money. There was a video that came up on my YouTube, and it said they were asking couples on this street where there's a lot of rich people. They were asking something, and they were probably asking this guy. I didn't watch the video because I don't like videos like that, but maybe they asked him like, how much did you make? But he said, enough to own you. I can own you. And this is another human being. So there's people who make enough money that feel that they can own human beings, obviously, because somebody wanted to own me so I can be a drug mule to work for them, right? So when people get money like that, they think that they can own other human beings like cattle, like slaves. So imagine if you were to get successful and you were to have something, and it would be worth it. It would be worth it to invest 100,000, let's say, on gang stalkers to knock off your competition who's making a couple million and taking money out of your pocket, put you in a scandal and steal all your customers. Do you really think you want to skip these lessons? You gotta learn every lesson. And this is why I always encourage everybody to be brave in situations. I'm not saying be careless. I'm not saying not use your better judgment. I'm not saying not acknowledge that danger is present. And I'm not saying running in head first without a plan and without thinking. But at the time that you're meant to be brave, and you know in your heart, in your gut, in your soul that this is the right thing to do, that this is what Spirit wants you to do, that you have to step up to the plate. Because this lesson that you're learning it for a reason. Excuse me, you're learning it for a reason. If it's that you have to be brave as far as facing your fears, if it's that you have to be brave as far as letting go of behaviors that you've had for a long time, but you can clearly see now it doesn't serve you. You can see how it's pointing you down the wrong path. Letting go of people, places, things, lifestyles, habits, hobbies that are just not healthy for you anymore, and knowing that you don't want to walk down that path anymore, then you got to acknowledge it. You know, God absolutely does not judge people the way human beings judge people. So God does not look at people and say, well, you're a drug dealer, or you're this, or you're that, or you're from the ghetto, or you're this. And like, that's not how it works. God really looks at your heart. And like I said in another video, I believe God looks at the qualities that you have. And I think that you can get redemption, you can get forgiveness, especially if God wants you anyway. Of course you're going to get forgiveness if God wants you to be of service, you know. So, but you have to let it go. You have to let the lifestyles go. You can't live in certain places. You can't be around certain people. You can't do these things anymore. And sometimes you got to let go of really critical relationships that are hard to let go of. I know for me, I had to let go of critical family relationships, just relationships in general. I had to, my whole client list, I had to abandon. Every single friend or acquaintance or friendly person that I've had to let go of all of that. Letting go of my entire old life to the point that, you know, if I jumped on a spaceship and moved to Mars right now, like, I would have nothing to lose. Like, I had to let go of everything. I had no I wasn't given a choice. Why? Because if I was given a choice, you know, I would just try to pack up in the little in the cabin with me. I would try to put everybody that I could on there. I'd be like, no, not this person. They don't deserve it. They're nice. It's not about if they're nice. It's not about if they participate. It's not about any of that. When you're coming to that fork in the road, that turn in your life, you just have to go. You have to go in the direction that you're being pointed. And it's not just that. God wasn't just like, you have to go. It's like, you gotta emotionally let it go. God was like, just let it go. There's better out there. You've suffered enough with these people. Let it go. Sever the ties, all of them. Coming to the point of realizing it's all of them took me longer than it should have. Like, it's just like betrayal after betrayal, insult after insult, injury, emotional injury after emotional injury. I mean, I didn't take it that hard, but it was so shocking. It was like, you too? It was like everybody. So it was so ridiculous. But it's like, at one point I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna let them do this anymore. So everybody's cut off. I don't care. I don't care who you are. I don't care how long I known you. I could be smiling with you today and I'm done tomorrow, because I know you're gonna turn on me. So it's like, I can see it as it comes. And that's the thing. That's what I mean when I say learn the lessons. Now, if I didn't want to learn that lesson and I keep wanting to hold on hope for this person and that person, the other person, do you know how long I would have stayed in this cycle of abuse? Up until the other day, they did it again. It's like, God's like, no one. You're holding on to no one. I will tell you who to hold on to. Even the reader that you listen to that calls my name, her too, no one. And I just had to learn the lesson and I had to release it, and it is what it is. And I just know that regardless of how it feels, it's for your best interest. Don't get dependent on anyone, is what God is saying. you know, though the lesson had to be learned in that way, I also understood underlying it was saying don't depend on anyone for advice. Do you see? I talk to you, I tell you what to do all the time. I tell you where to go all the time. Why do you need that? You don't even need that. In your gut, even all the messages that I was given in my gut, I kind of already knew all of those things. I didn't need that guidance. It was like things that I was going to come up to anyway. It was more so confirmations than nothing else. It was things that I came up to, and in my gut it was like, okay, this makes sense, you know? So that's why I tell people that come on here, take my advice, listen to it, see if it applies to you, see if it can make sense for you, but do not for the life of you just take anybody's advice blindly. Nobody, including me. Everything you have to pass through your spiritual filter. You have to know if it's for you or not. Sometimes it worked for me because it was my path, but it may not work for you. Sometimes it's not going to work for you right away because you're going to be blocked for a bit, because you still have more lessons to learn until you can get out of it. So you really have to just look at your situation, and no matter who's giving your advice, you have to really like read between the lines of what you're being told. Read between the lines of what you're being told and try to look at things from a higher perspective. Now, let me just explain quickly what I mean by a higher perspective. A higher perspective means do not look at things like a human being. This is how I do it. I try to imagine, how would God think of this situation, being that God wants the best for all of us. God doesn't want to see us in the positions that we're in, walking down the wrong path. How would God look at it? And some of it is still hard. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. Some of it, I'm like, please help me figure out the lesson in this, because I cannot figure this out. I have no idea what I was supposed to be learning here. Help me figure it out, because I want to learn. But other times it's like, I get the higher perspective and I don't want to accept it because I'm pissed off. Like, one of the higher perspectives was that the reality is, in my city, at least in my situation, other people were being gang stalked to gang stalk me. They weren't even doing it voluntarily because they wanted to. They were being gang stalked to gang stalk me. So they really had no choice. And then it was like, damn, if I think about it like that, I'm going to have to forgive them. I'm going to have to not hold it against them. I'm going to have to be understanding. And after what I've been through, so imagine going through that difficulty and now turning around and being like, what? Like, I have to forgive the people who did this? And this is the thing. It's like, while this is happening, God's not intervening at all. She's just sitting back and she's just letting you go through your process. And I really do appreciate and love that. She's letting you go through your process so you can figure it out on your own, because God's not here to walk this for you. The whole point is for you to learn and walk on your own. So it's like, I'm sitting back and it's like, I know logically I have no choice, but it's almost like I'm letting myself simmer in it a little bit. Like, yeah, I'm still pissed off about this. This is crazy. And I think sometimes like that's totally normal. Sometimes things take time. Rushing it doesn't make sense. It would be fake. There are just some things I had to cry a couple times about. Like, it is what it is. I had to release whatever I was bottling up. I had to let it go. And every time I got upset about it, it was like I was not as upset. So it was like slowly I was getting rid of it. And you know what? Each and every time she would comfort me and she would say, okay, relax, don't worry, etc., etc., etc. And until eventually I got to the point where it's like, I'm so nervous to say I've completely healed something because I don't know. I'll think that I am, and then something will happen and like, whoa, where was all of that? So it just takes time. I no longer am a time-focused person like I used to be. I used to be impatient. Now I'm a person who's just saying, listen, just give me some guidance, give me a nudge, give me a hint, help me out here. That's all I can ask for, because I know that it really is in the journey. It's in the process. I would love to rush and get to the place where I'm gonna feel great about everything. But if I rush it, I'm not gonna learn the lessons. And the only reason I can do what I'm doing right now is because of previous lessons that I learned. Had I not gone through no one helping me, no one supporting me, never being approved for financing, never getting this, never getting that, had I not gone through all of this, I would know how to handle where I am right now. So these hardships are in your favor as you're walking this gang stalking journey. Take your time, one step at a time, one foot in front of the other. Emotional management throughout the journey to help you be very, 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 very open. Your lessons can come from children, animals, situations, things that are not formal teachers will teach you. You'll see things in the atmosphere and you'll say to yourself, oh my God, that makes sense. That's why this is happening. That's what I'm supposed to learn from this situation. That's how I'm supposed to handle it. And then you just find yourself navigating this thing on your own and finding your way. And I would not worry about how long it's going to take because you're going to really upset yourself even more. It's like standing there and watching the paint dry or watching the water boil. Just set it and go do something else and release it. It truly is the truth. I remember when I was talking about, like when I was learning about manifesting, it used to say, once you pray for it, walk away and leave it alone, or else you're going to screw it up because you're going to keep overthinking. You're going to do something. You're going to try to make it happen too fast. And it really is true. You got to walk away from it and you got to let it do its thing. And, you know, I use cooking analogies all the time. I make soup. You leave it on the stove. The longer you leave it at a low temperature, the better the soup. So that's it. You just got to leave it. You got to walk with it. When it's ready, trust me, you will not be able to miss it. It'll be in your face. So that's the first thing that I want to say. It's the first half of what I want to say. The second half I want to say is, first of all, I call this a Christ walk because it's a death of your old life completely. And it's not personal. It's not just about one or two people. The reason I talk about the heart chakra needs to open up before you go through your spiritual journey is because you need to be able to connect with the divine. You need to be able to connect with God. And connecting with God is universal love. It's unconditional love. It's not like falling in love with one person. It's not like loving your kids, because you can love your kids and still be a hateful person. You can fall in love with a person and still be an awful person. We're talking about universal love, love for humanity. That's how God's love is. So if you're in a situation where your heart chakra has opened up and you feel universal love, as you're going through gang stalking, I'm going to speak for myself. As I was going through gang stalking, I said to myself, I prayed. I'm getting gang stalked myself, mind you. I'm in the same predicament. But I met other people that were getting gang stalked, and they were always such sweet, innocent, soft, kind-hearted people. And I'm going and I'm praying and I'm saying, God, are you kidding me? This shouldn't exist. This is awful. I'm like, how are people going to believe in you? And this is happening. No wonder people don't believe in God. I'm like, this is so hurtful. And then I started retracing my steps with all the people that got trapped in this, and they wouldn't believe in God. And if you talked about God, they would get angry with you. They'd start screaming and they'd be like, God doesn't exist. And they'd get so mad. And I used to wonder, like, why? And I realized because this awful thing happened to them and it's so scary, and God wasn't there. And there was no help in their eyes. There was no help coming. And it's not so much that they don't believe in God per se. It's that they're angry at God. They're angry at God. And because they're so angry at God, they're blocked. They're blocked from the help that they should receive because they want it to be instant. And nothing works this way. Some things, I don't even know if to tell people some things are instant. I think you don't get into things that you're not supposed to go through. And then when you're going through things, you're supposed to go through them. That's what I think. That's the life path that has to be followed. So I started thinking back to it, and every single person that still had peace or walked away from the gang stalking were people that were highly spiritual. One lady meditated so much. She told me it was through meditation she got it. She got through it. I meditate a lot as well. I believe in meditation. Another lady, very spiritual as well. Anybody that seemed to be doing okay with it had some sort of spiritual belief. You're not getting through this without God. But I want to say this much to anybody watching this video, like, if you think about it, the people who've gone before you that have endured this situation that come back to tell you, think about how much God did hear you, that they put another person through hell and back to learn how to get through this. Not just to get through it and go about their way, but to get through it just to come back to tell you how to get through it. That is the situation that we're in. That's how I see myself. I don't see myself as someone who necessarily went through this just to go through it. I definitely feel like it was a persecution. So it's so crazy. I'm praying this prayer because my heart is broken about the people going through this nightmare, realizing all the people that have been silently suffering in my city around me that I don't know about, that couldn't say anything, and realizing that I went through it for them. That's why I call it the Christ walk. Because what did they say in the Bible? God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And I don't know the rest of the quote. I got to look it up so that it makes sense. And I should, because it's very, not only is it very popular, but I grew up in like a very hardcore Christian house. I should know that. God so loveth the world. Quote. I want to read it properly. So, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. Like, I'm getting emotional. Like, that is how I think those of us who have to get gang stalking, those of us who have to get through gang stalking, this is why. Because for every one person who gets through, like 1,000 don't make it. And if you really listen to the quote, whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. And I talk all about the death and rebirth cycle, where the first death is where you die in the spirit, and then you're born again into your spiritual family, your spiritual kingdom. And that's where they cannot kill you. They cannot do anything with you. They can't do anything with you. And actually, I'm going to take this quote and I'm going to put it on my page. I think this is very significant. But you also have to remember too that in this journey that you're going through, you got to leave your ego at the door. I have to remind myself of that as well. You got to leave your ego at the door. It's not about you. And that's why I started off by saying it doesn't matter how favored you are. It doesn't matter how respected you are in the spirit. You're here for other people, not for yourself. This is not self-serving. I think that everybody who has a spiritual connection and spiritual gifts, whether they work for God or they work for themselves or they do black magic or whatever, anybody who has some sort of spiritual gift, this gift is, you're taking care of it. Don't get attached to it as if it can't be taken back, because it can. You're a custodian of a gift. You're a caregiver to a gift. You're a keeper of it. You're holding it. You're tending to it. When God gives you blessings, sometimes you may just be holding on to it to make other people better. And even other gifts, like you can sing, you can dance, you can act, you can create. God needs those things. These are all things that God needs. And so the amount of, look at music, the amount of songs that are made, even though they're not Christian songs, even though they're secular songs, they may be love songs, they may just be whatever kind of songs. Spirit uses the music to communicate. So that means the inspiration came from spirit to begin with. This is what I mean when I say these organizations need to end, because these organizations are putting people in situations where these people cannot actualize their gifts. These people have things that they're supposed to do. See, we just look at it as money. Somebody might see that you have a very close connection with God and they might say, well, why aren't you rich? Why aren't you a millionaire? Why aren't you this? Why aren't you that? But you're not given a gift to abuse it. And it's listen, by the time you get to the point where that gift is activated, you are so in love with the spirit that is where you find your fulfillment. You do not get the fulfillment, even if you know that you're going to have a lot of money one day, or you're going to have a lot of success, you're going to have whatever. That's not the thing that moves you. The thing that moves you is loyalty, is love, is appreciation to your spirit family, for even if they didn't save you, just for being there with you during this tough time. That's what moves you. And that moves you way more than a promise of getting something back. It's like, I'm just happy you're with me. I'm just happy I'm not alone. So these people go about doing this for the wrong reasons. There are people who want to enslave you, who want to take your gifts from you, and they want to do it over money. They want to do it over stupidity. And you know they're not tapped in because that's what's moving them. Had they ever felt the loving presence of God, had they ever opened themselves up to be able to feel it, had they ever believed, they wouldn't, that wouldn't be what would move them. They wouldn't have need for it. Like, they would recognize that even if I got all this money, I know that there's a possibility that I couldn't be happy, because if I got all the money and I didn't feel spirit anymore, I would panic. I would be a lost soul wandering, trying to find my spirit again, trying to find my happiness. It's like if you lose a child, how can you be happy not having a child? How can you be happy not having a child when, how can you move on if you don't have your kid? If you lost your kid, it got kidnapped, and you don't know where it is, how are you going to move on with yourself? What are you going to do with yourself at that point? You're just going to keep going to parties and having dinners at your house and doing, like, no, your life stops until you find the kid, and then you need to have some closure. If you're never going to find, like, you need to have a funeral, something needs to happen. You can't just leave it like that. That's the same thing. That's how deeply spiritual people feel. Our whole existence becomes about spirit, and it becomes important. And if you don't feel spirit for a while, or if you don't talk to spirit for a while, you're like, whoa, what the heck's like going on here? So believe me, it's not, well, for me, it's not from a place of ego. It's not from a place of, and you have to be careful. This is how you have to do this walk. Any gift that you get cannot be abused, cannot be used to hurt innocent people, cannot be used to get over on people, cannot be used for self-gratification, for doing things for your own good that has nothing to do with what God's asked you to do. You must be humble in this whole walk that you're going to take. And you must know that, and you must know your position with spirit as well. It's a loving relationship, yes, but you must also know your place. Like, there was this girl that I listened to, and she said that these people don't know that spirit works for us. And I'm like, no, 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 be so careful with that mentality. Just because the spirit moves for you does not mean that spirit works for you. Spirit is infinite knowledge. It doesn't matter. One thing they can do is they know how to get in and out of contracts. They know the loopholes. Don't think that anything is just, you got to be respectful and you got to listen. If God has to say something twice to me, I really try for that to be the last time. Even if it's something that is hard to swallow, a hard pill to swallow, I have to let it be the last time. I think twice is even too much. Watching God repeat things to people over and over, I don't understand why people keep taking things for a joke. This is scary stuff. And the spirit world is not the kind of place that you just go tampering with and playing with things without thinking. I am very humble. And when I hear things about false gods and all of that, it's not that those gods don't have some sort of power or whatever, but when you're in your family, when you're in your spiritual family, it's very cut and dry for you. Like, I may have energies that I definitely love and work with, but the altar, the commitment is just to my guides, so you really have to look at it that way. You can't look at anything like with an overinflated ego. We have to learn from the mishaps of other people. I have my periods where I'm upset and the anger blinds you, the annoyance blinds you. So you have your periods where you're upset at something, someone, some situation, and when you get back to your calm self, you can think about it and you can say, what can I learn from this? And for me, for the betrayals that I see, I just see situations where I'm learning from it, like what I should not do, how I should behave, how I should be careful in my thinking and how I act and how I move forward. I need to be mindful because I'm seeing the examples of like how things can go awry. So I just wanted to put that out there. Please keep your conscience about you and keep your humanity despite the fact that you're very upset at people. You're gonna have your walk with your emotions. It is normal. Take your time, release it, pray about it, give it to God. Listen, I kid you not. Take the hurt and say, listen, I gotta give this to you because I don't know what to do with it. You have to try your best. You don't want to hate humanity. You don't want to hate people because you're here to help people. That's the craziest part about it. I went through that as well. And there was a certain point where it's like, it almost felt like, am I here to help the same people that persecute other people? And it's like, unfortunately, yes, because they too are people. So you got to take your time with it. When you're done being gang stalked, when you're done getting over the fact that you lost so much, when you're done getting over all of these things that were so difficult, then you got to heal yourself emotionally. And if you think the other stuff is difficult, that emotional healing is something else. Rough. It is rough. You have to come to terms with things. That word forgive used to piss me off. I used to not even like it. I've been dealing with this word for 6 months. Forgive, 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 forgive. And I've come so far with it that finally achieving forgiveness feels so good and so much better than not forgiving. Oh my God, thank you so much. You guys have no idea how difficult it is. Well, you do. You do have an idea. To carry pain, that's where anger comes from. That's where the hurt comes from. That's where wanting revenge comes from. It's from the pain. And like releasing that pain, just getting rid of that burden, just understanding from another person's perspective, understanding why it had to happen the way that it happened, finally releasing it, and then you're like, this feels much better than what I was feeling before. I feel good. And I'll tell you, the first day that I completely forgave something, I just had such a good freaking day the next day. Like, it was so, like, I had an amazing day. You would have thought I got paid, I made a lot of money or something. Like, I had an amazing day. The whole day was good. Nothing significant other than I just released a burden. So it is worth it to work on the forgiveness. Yes, even your enemies. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not there with the John Ferrer person. I'm not there with it. every time, he doesn't want me to forgive him. Every time I tried to in the past, he would just start like throwing spell work and being like angry and doing all of this extra stuff. So it's like he doesn't want me to forgive him either. But I think the day that I achieve that is the day that I will say that I mastered something in myself. Because that one is very, 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 very difficult. It's very difficult. Like a lot has happened. And is probably still happening now. So take your time with it, but please just don't. I think God is very understanding of our journey, and God knows that it's difficult and it's going to take time. And like I said, when you open your heart to spirit, spirit can feel your pain. So they understand where it's coming from, and they're upset about things as well. You're going through a massive injustice. This is crazy stuff you're going through. But if you take your time with it and you allow it, and I think everything that you have to do, you have to start now. Don't wait until it's done to say that you're gonna go through the forgiveness thing or the releasing thing or the healing thing. You gotta start now. It's a massive cleanup job. Massive. 6 months away from active gang stalking on the streets, I'm still cleaning up a mess. Excuse me, emotionally. I'm still emotionally cleaning up a mess. It is still tough. There were things that would trigger me so bad when I hear them. It's almost like it would send my system into like overdrive. I would have to like take a break from my work and everything. Like I couldn't move forward, that upset. So if there was even a suggestion of forgiving like a particular people, it's like my whole system would like break down. It's like, how can I even be asked for that, is how I would feel. You gotta take your time. It's gonna take time. Knowing everything that I know, knowing all the particulars, my brain understands it. The other parts of me, whether they understand or not, just wants to hold on to it. But it's heavy to carry. Don't take advantage of spirit. Just because you have access to spirit, don't take advantage of your access. Don't take advantage and think that you don't have a strict code to adhere to. When you're on a mission such as the one that you're in right now, I believe a lot of people being gang stalked, you're on a mission to bring people to justice or hold people to task or see people's karma come to through fruition. And I feel like if that is the situation with you, and this is what the journey that you have to endure, this mission has to get done despite you. Yes, you might feel like you are the main player in the situation. And yes, the story may be written that you are the one that it was decided would be the one that's saved from this difficult situation. However, it's not being done just because of you alone. You may be the person, I'll use myself as an example. I may be the person in my situation who God has said, okay, this one is going to make it. This one is not going to suffer. This one's not going to get trapped. But the bigger picture and the higher perspective is it's not just about me. There's so many other players in this. There's so many other innocent people who never deserve this. I may just be the one who was spiritually connected enough, or maybe I may just be the one who was strong enough, or maybe I may be the one who had the ability to connect. Maybe people think it might be just gifts or talents or anything. Maybe it might just be I was the one who had interest to break through, and when Spirit reached out her hand, I reached back. So you never know what the reason is exactly. Maybe we will. But this is not about me, and I'm well aware of that. Why? Because I prayed for that in the beginning. I said to God, like, you got to do something about this. You can't let this happen to people. This is crazy, or people are not going to believe in you. There were so many times just out of like fascination with my spiritual journey, I would be telling people about spirituality, not necessarily because I'm trying to preach to anyone, but I am so fascinated with this journey. This is the most beautiful thing that's ever happened to me. And this, and I'm telling them, and it's like, they're telling me so many things that happened and why they don't believe. And I had no answers. I was stumped, and I was like, going back, like, why did that happen? Why did you allow that to happen? We didn't come here to have an experience that is without challenges. It's in the challenges that you grow. It's in the challenges that you find God the most. I don't know if I would have ever connected as deeply as I did with God unless everybody and everything was blocked from me and I had no other choice. And maybe I had, like, not maybe, I definitely feel like I had to go through all of the things, meet all of the people, face all of the evil, etc., that I went through in order to find God in this way. But in the middle of this journey, I kept saying, like, you cannot allow this to happen. This is going to make, there were so many times in my journey I said, this is why people don't believe in God. Oh my goodness, this is so difficult for me, and I have such a faith and a belief and a hope. Step by step, they let me know, yes, it's taking forever, but we're here. They proved to me that they were there with me, but the situation was not necessarily improving. In fact, it kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Imagine holding on to your faith in a situation that's getting bad. And there were times I'd be conscious of it and I'd say, with everything that I believe in, if I were to tell somebody on the street what I believe in, they'd be like, you're getting gang stalked right now. What are you talking about? You just lost so much, and like all of this bad stuff is happening and whatever. Like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And that's because they just don't know. They just don't see. They just don't feel it. But it's like, I know. I cannot deny it. If I wanted to. There were times in the very beginning I wanted to think I was crazy and like go back to the normal world. I couldn't. So I'm saying all of this to say that this is not just about you. There are people suffering here. These people have caused other people to suffer. One, these people will continue to cause people to suffer if you do not get through this. Two, because when they say you're a chosen one, what they mean is that you were chosen to be the one that gets through it. You were chosen to be the one that breaks the cycle. So you need to get through it so other people can get through it. So then you turn around and you say, let me point you in the direction that I went through. This is where I turned. This is what I had to do. What took you so long to do, it took me 2 years to navigate this. Someone coming after me can get through this so much faster. There is no way it's gonna take you 2 years. You don't need 2 years. You're getting the real life facts. Do this, do that, do this, do that, turn to this, do that. Like, it should take much shorter. That is the point. That is the point. So it's like, I gotta talk about the whole thing, the spiritual experience, the real life experience, the real life things. I gotta talk about everything from how to make a police report and how to keep up notes, all the way up to how to pray, how to set up your altar, how to do this. I gotta give you the full thing so that you can put it together. And as you're putting it together, God is going to add in different pieces for you. And the most important part is your connection. So in the beginning, I said, well, you can believe in whatever you want to believe. And because I was trying to be accepting of everyone and whatever. But the reality is, look, no, it's not. I sat back and I was like, I didn't meet Jesus in this. So like, how can I say that? That's wrong. That's pointing people in the wrong direction. People who are truly spiritual, where their spiritual gifts or their spiritual abilities tie into like everyday life, none of them truly believe in Jesus. I don't care what they say. And if they think that they do, they're tapping into something that's allowing them to call it by any name. But the problem is you really, there's power in the name. The Chinese say that the beginning of wisdom is calling things by the correct name, and it's true. If something is there's a difference. If someone is called a gang stalker, it's one thing, but if you call someone a victim who is a gang stalker, a victim who happens to be a gang stalker, it's another thing, because it really molds your perception of the situation. It makes you realize that the situation is not just one dimensional the way that you're seeing it. That this is someone who gang stalks, but they're also a victim of a system that is forcing them to do so. Whether they enjoy it or not, whether they were manipulated into it or not, whether they fell victim to that or not, that is the facts. So don't take advantage of the relationship. Be humble in your relationship. Know that, you know, it's not just loving God and being respectful to God and treating other people horribly. It's like, yes, you can defend yourself. Yes, you can do whatever you have to do that God guides you to do, that other people might not think is so nice. But at the same time, it's like you got to have some humanity about you. You got to still maintain compassion. You got to be sure that you're doing things for the right reasons. It's the reasoning. You know, two people can do the same thing, but the right reasons are important. And know not to go too far, and know when God is saying like enough, slow down, relax, and be cognizant and be aware. And sometimes there are times where God just lets you go off and do things, and you have to use your own mind to say like, I shouldn't be doing this right now. I shouldn't be, because God will watch. God will watch. God will watch what you're doing and how you're doing it and how you handle it. And if you've learned the lessons that you're supposed to learn, and believe me, I'm telling you, I am terrified of relearning lessons at the phase of life that I'm in right now. I don't want to be relearning gang stalking for any reason whatsoever. It is essential to walk that middle path, to know when to tap into what I call your shadow side and get justice and bring justice, because you're going to have to. And, you know, God's not going to let you not bring justice. God is not going to allow you to not bring justice in a situation that has been orchestrated for so long. Justice that needs to come to people that are suffering. That's why you're so heavily protected, because they need you to get through it. They need you to learn how to do it. Nobody could do it before. So they had to bring somebody else in to put somebody through that persecution to know how to do it. And that's why you're protected, and that's why your success is guaranteed. And that's why you're learning from other sources as well on how to walk the path. So you take your knowledge, you apply it, you be brave, you walk the path, you get through it. And then part of your blessing is helping others. And this is another thing that karmic individuals never understand. They always want to understand, like, how are God's people so blessed? But they look at us as stupid because we're so kind, we're so loving, we're so giving. They think, oh my God, like, you've gone through all of these things, all these people hurt you, all these things happen, but they don't understand how it feels to give. When you give, you feel so good. You feel blessed, not from a place of ego because you could give. It's because it feels good to give. It feels good to love. Receiving love is one thing, but giving love feels amazing. And so you continue to give love to other people. You continue as you're going through your journey. And my channel is very small. It's a very humble page. I don't mind. But I remember in the beginning when I was engaging with people, my chats were open and I was responding to comments and all of that. I felt very fulfilled, even though I found out I was engaging with gang stalkers. But it was still like, I know some of them I felt like one or two might have been genuine. And I felt very fulfilled. I felt very good. Even if it was one or two people, I just felt like, listen, this is so hard. Every time I listen to somebody's gang stalking story, I remember how difficult it was. Being under all the spell work, the spiritual attacks round the clock, gang stalked on the street, people in your energy, accessing your energy, doing this, doing that. This is so hard that if you help one person, you will go to your grave and you're like, I had a life purpose. I helped someone. This is not like helping someone with money. This is not like, this is like literally If all you learned from me was one thing, was two things, to sage and to turn your cell phone off, do you know how much relief that gives a person to sage their place of this nonsense and to turn their cell phone off or just leave the cell phone at home when they go around? Do you know how much relief that gives a human being? To break it up for the gang stalker so that they don't know where you are and where you're going, especially if you're not going to the same place every day at the same time. Imagine. That's what I mean. That's why I feel gratified by what I'm doing. I feel good. I feel like this is my life purpose. This is what I'm supposed to. This is enough to say I'm turning around and I'm blessing others. And believe me, when I come off of here, I feel so good. I feel like God feels good about it. Like I feel like God feels like it worked. Like this was her plan so that people can get what it is that I have to say. And there were things that I didn't think was so important before, like things about like emotional healing and how to manage it, whatever, because at that time I didn't know about other people. I didn't know about the other people getting gang stalked as well, or what their experience was like. And then when that happened, I was like, okay, I totally get it. I get why God wants me to talk about every single facet of this, because the emotional part is difficult. Even before coming on here, I remember I listened to somebody's video and this guy said, he's like, I want to be able to take care of myself. I want to be able to have my hygiene. I want to be able, and that's what he said. He said, I want to be able to have good hygiene. Why did I have to go through this? And I realized, I remember in the beginning of my gang stalking where I was gonna go down that path, I promise you. Had I not made the decision like, okay, it's time to now pull yourself up, get out of this funk, do the things that you're supposed to do. I remember it. I remember it. So you have to try to remember this too when it's your time that you're gonna have to tell people what it's about. You're gonna have to try to remember how tough it was for you, how tough it is for others that are going through it, and think about things from their perspective as well, what they must be going through. This thing that a lot of people keep saying, chosen ones this and chosen ones that. Listen, it's not a game. If you knew what you were chosen for, you probably wouldn't want to do it. You wouldn't want to do it at all. You wouldn't want to do it. This is tough. This is difficult. You're not being given gifts to like just flaunt it or feel like you're better than other people or any of the above. The gifts are in service of the work that you have to do. You need them for your assignment. If you were to use these gifts to enrich yourself, you would gladly want to do it, but you actually need it for the assignments that you're on in life. This life, you have an assignment. So if you have an ability to communicate with someone remotely, if you have an ability to access someone's energy, like whatever it is, these gifts are in service. They're supposed to be in service of the missions that you go through. And a lot of times it's because you're strong enough to do the things that other people cannot do and to get through the things that other people cannot get through. And it's exactly what I talked about. So that you're the sacrifice. You're the human sacrifice. Not so that you would like die and not rise up again from the cross. You're the human sacrifice so that you know how to rise up after you can wake up. You're the human sacrifice so that you can show people how to die on their own cross and how they can rise up again. That's why it's so painful. The first person to do it, it's painful. Because how many days of rough energy work did you have to endure before you learned about how to deal with it, how to heal it, how to fix it, how to block it? Even me right now, I'm thinking it's done. Yeah, you got to learn how to forgive. Because what's the point of getting through something and now you live the rest of your life hateful? What's the point of getting through something and now you live the rest of your life feeling like everybody's evil and not being able to connect with people with a damaged heart chakra. So now I gotta go back and tell people to forgive. And when people lash out, I gotta say, hey, I understand. If I never went through it, I'd be back on here like, who are you people? How do you think you're not supposed to be forgiving people? God doesn't like that, from a place of ego, right? But the fact that I have to learn to forgive, as soon as someone lashes out, I'm like, I get it. I understand. Take your time. Take your time. Spirit mentions things to me and I freak out every time. And it's like they just break me down because they keep repeating it. And finally I'm like, oh, fine, I have to address this. I'm going to do it. But they know that that's going to be my reaction, because that's just a normal reaction to like what I've had to endure, right? So it's the same thing. When I hear people say they don't believe in God, I don't look down on them, because when I was 18, I had my episode as well. I went through something really rough and I was like, there's no way there can be a God that can exist and this will happen. So now I've come full circle and I'm like, okay, I get it. I get why people are angry at God. They felt that they had been left behind, they gave up, and they gave up their belief. And that's the thing you gotta believe. When you get to your new beginning, God's backed the enemy back up. You gotta think of your new beginning like this. God says to you, we're gonna get out of Egypt, I'm gonna rescue you, and you're walking into the Red Sea and it parts for you so you can see this miracle. You can see that you can walk through, but you're walking through the ocean floor and there's an army coming behind you, and you're telling me it's not going to be scary to see the ocean closing back on them and them drowning in it. Your heart's going to be pounding because you're like, what if one of them gets through? What if this? What if that? It's scary. And you got to keep your eyes focused. You got to stay focused. You got to keep walking all the way through. And when you get to the other side, you're in a desert. And now there's no fruit trees and no running water, and you got to depend on God for everything. You got to depend on God for the water, for the bread. And when whatever comes for the night comes, there's no meat, there's no gravy, there's none of that. It's like dry bread and some water, and that's it for however long you're in there. You can't look at God and say, that's it. How comes? But yeah, you might, but that's the journey. And you don't know why you're taking that journey, and you're going to find out at some point. And it takes a while, and then you got to walk through this desert with this crazy person that's suggesting things that doesn't make sense. Excuse me, that's telling you that they're getting commandments on a stone and God's giving instructions. Here are the 10 commandments, because God is preparing you to build your new city, your kingdom. You did it before one way. These are the lessons that you had. But now I'm telling you how it's going to be moving forward. This is the foundation of how you're going to set up your life. So when you look at the 10 commandments, you really have to live by that stuff. So it's like, it's a long journey to redemption. People think redemption is going to be just like, we're going to get to the other side and we're going to be in this huge forest, and we're going to do the happy job of just building new houses and we're going to live happily ever after. And no, it's in the struggle that you get to know God. It's in the period of trusting for everything like a child. Because once you break out of that old system and you're learning spirit for the first time, like you're a child, you're a baby in the spirit, and you're learning to walk. You're learning to talk. And that's why spirit is so close to you, guiding you with everything that you're doing. So you're learning one step at a time. And you have to be so humble. You have to listen to other people. You have to accept that other people know more than you. They've been on this journey longer, and then you also have to accept that even the ones who have been on the journey longer don't even know everything, that they can be wrong, that they can be blind, that they can be fooled, that they can be manipulated. So now you got to be even more humble, that no matter how far you get in your journey, you still have to be careful. You have to keep the childlike attitude where you're constantly dependent on spirit for everything. And I've come to a point I quite like it, because honestly, I am tired of doing this myself. This life is so crazy that even the decisions that seem like logical, common sense decisions, straightforward, this makes sense, not really. Because when God gives you the right decision, it's not the logical decision. It does not necessarily make sense. You're like, what? How does this make any sense? I would be backwards, or I would be like, how does this make sense? But when you listen, when you're humble, when you just take the advice, when you just do what you're supposed to do and it works out like magic, you're like, whoa. That is when you realize the genius of spirit that you would have never thought that before. And when I say I'm childlike with God, I mean I ask for everything. If I have to go buy something, I'll be like, listen, can you take me to the place where they're having sales? And sometimes I say that prayer before I leave the house. I forget. I find myself in some place where everything is cheap and I'm like, holy crap. And I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's not really about having the resources or not having the resources. It's about the prayer. It's about the answering of the prayer. I go somewhere and it's like, listen, I really want to get parking in a super parked parking lot. And I'll go the first round, I won't find parking, and I'll come back like the third time, and boom, somebody's driving out and I get that spot. And some people might miss it and they might be like, it's just a coincidence. But isn't gang stalking a series of coincidences that only you notice, that only you're paying attention to? That's what gang stalking is. It's a bunch of like consequential things that they're using to harass you, that they're using to make you aware that they're there. That's how spirit works. You go and tell somebody, oh, I found my place myself at this place and things were cheap here and spirit did it. They'd be like, okay. It's not a miracle. It's not like turning water into wine. You recognize it because you know that every time you pray one of these prayers, they get answered, but people don't. So you have to recognize humbly that for the rest of this life, that you are a baby in the spirit. That's how you have to walk when you're in the flesh suit, because you just do not have the same access they have. There's pros and cons on either side. Yes, spirits want a vessel, but there's also advantages on their side as well that we don't have. So in your spirit family, I just find it safer to keep that mentality that I see myself as a custodian of gifts. I see myself in a very humble way. I want to maintain humility, and I just want to follow instructions, and I just want to follow them in a timely fashion as well. That's another, timing is huge, because sometimes spirit tells you to move right before the window is closed on you moving. And as soon as you step out of that way, a bomb just drops right in the same spot that you were standing. And you start realizing like, damn, if I had been hard-headed and didn't move, that would have been me. So you have to remember that. You have to remember that. You also have to balance it with common sense. Like I always say, don't just run into traffic. The most that they can do if you do that is maybe you can be alive and crippled or like in a stretcher in the hospital for how many weeks, but don't push your luck. You got to be humble. You got to be focused. You got to listen, and you got to pass it through your gut. I always say, make sure you meditate, make sure you pray, because your number one counsel remains the Most High. It's not myself, it's not anyone else. Do not put people on any kind of pedestal. Do not. They are humans just like you. They're trying their best just like you. And this is a big threat. Once you're being gang stalked, it's like you're surrounded. This is a big threat. So you don't want to take it too seriously, but you don't want to take it too, you don't want to be too careless when you're in the middle of it either. You still want to be humble enough to be alert and to recognize that there are dangers out there. And I want to go further as to say that now that you're spiritually awakened, the dangers are going to be forever, I want to say, because you're awake to it now. You know better. You're not like other people that don't know. You know what is out there. You know that spiritually there are threats. You know that there are entities out there that are after you. And it's entities more than anything. There are entities that will body hop that are after you. You're aware. So just be careful. and listen. That's all I can say. Um, I think I covered everything. Please, there are 6 people in here. If you guys can give me a like, it does help my algorithm. It helps my page grow. I am already being shadow banned. They're already trying to stop my page from growing. So I would appreciate a like. And that is all. Actually, you know what came in my head? I have to do a spirit oracle card because it came in my head early on to do. So let me go grab them. I'm filming from a new spot in my house. Give me a second. Okay. This came up in my heart to do earlier, so I don't want to skip it. Okay, these 2 came out. I didn't even shuffle it. So have more faith in yourself. Be proud of how you are navigating every curveball that life throws at you. How you deal with those times shows your true inner strength. Nothing can break that. That in itself is an inspiration for others. Keep shining your light. And I think that's the exact same thing that I talked about is there are people, I'm going to talk from my city. There are people who know about what I'm going through and other people connected to me are going through, and they may not say it, they may not come up to you, you may not have access to them, but believe me, I know that I'm inspiring these people. I know that I give them hope. I know that even though they may have to put on a facade with others that, you know, they don't like me, they hate me, and because I'm supposed to be public enemy number 1, I know in their heart that I feel it, that there are those people who are cheering me on, because if I do it, that means they can do it. And I think that people are very grateful for being able to, I think people are grateful that I'm speaking out. I think they're grateful that I'm giving the information that I'm giving. Because for a page that's shadow banned, not getting likes and not getting comments, the views are pretty high. The views are coming from somewhere. People need to know, and people know about my situation. They're talking about it. The gossip's crazy. So I know in my heart, and I've been given indication, and there's been a couple times I wanted to, like, in the beginning, I wanted to stop coming online, and I was like, I don't see what the point is. These people are fighting me. They're banning my page. The views are low. And right when I say that, somebody comes online, and I used to have my chats on, and somebody would be like, oh my God, you come online right on time. Oh my God, you always come right at the right time. And I know what that feels like when I went through it, that someone would drop a message of inspiration right at the right time, and I'd be like, oh my God, I needed this today. And my spirit that was getting low gets pumped up again, and I'm like, I get hopeful. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep doing this. Okay, I'm gonna do the next thing. And that's really all you can have is hope. If all I give is hope, do you know how expensive that is? That somebody has paid all these thousands of dollars to make sure you have no hope. Do you know how powerful hope is? Hope is the difference. Listen, if I didn't have hope, I didn't have God encouraging me, if I didn't keep going, I would have stopped this channel within like the first month or so, I want to say. By January, I would have been discouraged. It was like 9 views, 12 views. It was ridiculous. It's like, what the hell am I doing this for? I'm posting every single day on 2 platforms. And then it just happens where it's like, it's not about the views or the followers or any of the subscribers or anything. It's about people were like, you always come with the good content. I know I come with different stuff because I don't want to cry. I don't want to talk about like all of the, oh my God, it's depressing. It's depressing. We're already going through a bad situation. We need solutions. We need to know how to get the heck out of here as quickly as possible. What can you do? This is what I was going through. This is what I did. This is what you have to do. So every single time, I'm going to mirror what the card is saying. Every single time you feel like something is not working, by just deciding to take another step, you are encouraging another person to take another step. That's it. And whatever new thing that you're going to do, make a commitment. I call it, this is actually a really good tip I'm going to give. I call it the rule of 100. I have a rule that I do things 100 times before I start reconsidering it. or before I start thinking about if I want to keep it or if I don't. So if I have to make 100 calls, if I have to send 100 emails, if I have to post 100 times, I had a list of 100 things I was going to do in my gang stalking journey, and I wrote it. I was going to talk about it, and now I talked about this instead. If I had a list of 100 things I was going to do to fight back in my situation, and I never got to get through the list because it was working so well. By the time I got to like 30, like a third of the list, it was like, I think I got to like 36 or something. It was working so well. These people could not tolerate the crap I was doing, because I was going crazy with things that I was doing. So, and it was strategic. It wasn't just doing things to do things. I'm going to go over, I don't know where this list is, but I'm going to make another list. I'm going to put myself in the mind frame of if I were being gang stalked. I'm going to make another list, and I'm going to come here and I'm going to share some of it with you to give you some ideas of what kind of things you should be doing to start taking care of your situation. Make sure people respect you. Make sure people think twice, because this is a process to get that respect. It's not just because you say it. You got to be as consistent as they are in fighting back consistently. Always fight back. So this is, I'm going to say, a card of resilience. Make sure you keep going. The other one is, perhaps you are reminded all too often just how quickly the phases in your life can shift. One change after another, you're learning to adapt and grow. Be kind and gentle with yourself. I had to learn that because so hard on myself. My money stopped in the middle of this stuff, and I had to deal with that. I had to deal with all my customers are gang stalkers, or like just involved in whatever this is. So they were really controlled by whatever energy this was. They were just into rap and drug culture, and it is what it is. So they were already in the game. And was I hard on myself? Did I feel like I'm not making enough money, I'm not doing enough things, I'm not this, I'm not that? Of course I did. Anybody would, right? But what it really boils down to at the end of the day is just knowing progress looks like one step at a time. One foot in front of the other is undetectable. It's not noticeable. It's over time. The best results, real results, steady results, it happens literally by, it takes a long time, like I said. Rule of 100. By the way, by the time I got to 36, that took months. It took a while to get through that list because of all the other stuff that I was going through. So don't think, imagine if you had to make 100 phone calls to get results, and you're going to get results on the 100th phone call. Your body would want to give up minimum at 60. By the time you'd be like, oh my God, I made all of these calls and nothing's happening. You still have 40 more to go before you can see any results. That's how you have to look at your situation. You just have to keep going, because first of all, what choice do you have? None. So you might as well just look at the journey as a journey. Relax on yourself. The timelines are the timelines, and when God is ready, shifts happen that are so big. Things happen where it's like you can feel like you're just being airlifted out of the situation. I've experienced it so many times. Just keep going, keep walking, keep putting yourself in the right place at the right time to be noticed. And just know that if you don't make those phone calls, and you don't send those emails, and you don't post that content, and you don't do this and you don't do that, then you never know. You don't even have the position. You're not even in the position if the opportunity were there. So you got to just keep going. And I'm using it in context to like maybe online businesses. But if you have a physical business and you got to learn how to market because you were lazy about it before, then you got to learn how to market. Everybody has to learn how to market. And now that you know how to market, now you can market any business. You can market anything. You can market yourself. So you got to learn how to do it, so that when you're ready, you can do it for yourself, you can do it for others, etc., etc. You gotta, if it's marketing, if it's learning how to sell, if it's learning how to, a new skill, a new trade, whatever it is, just have to literally walk one step at a time. And it's encouraging. I feel like it's encouraging for other people as well. 3 more came out. Okay, I feel like I'm gonna read 2 of them because this one here keeps coming out. I'll read it briefly, but it keeps coming out so many times. Never allow yourself to be taken for granted. It is better to remove yourself from the situation than to be treated less than you deserve. You are precious. You are worthy. I came from a situation where my entire community came up against me to be a, you know, a drug mule, and they're very disrespectful. They're very they treat people like, they gaslight you a lot. They treat people very awful. So sometimes when I see this card come up, it's like maybe spirit's reminding me of like, you did the right thing, like getting out of that space. You do not want to work with these kinds of people anyway, because it's not a good experience. These other 2 I think are more valid, and then I'll close off this video. It says, trust the wait. You're being prepared for your blessings. In order to receive, you have to be ready to receive. Things you are going through now are not random. Trust the flow of the universe. And that's why I talk about when you are going through your process, and, you know, people call themselves a chosen one, and you call yourself, I call it the Christ walk. I call it, you know, being the sacrificial lamb. That is preparing you for where you have to go. So you don't have to repeat this again. So you do have to learn the lessons. It is taking forever. You're impatient and whatnot. But you know what? I feel like blessings are that much sweeter the longer that you wait for them and the more patient you are, because it is coming around. And especially if God has promised you something, you know, Spirit does not keep her word. Unheard of. So it's a guarantee. That is the best promise that you can have. Consider it done. And then the last one is, if you think you are alone, you are not. We are beside you in all challenges that you face. Trust that outside sources will always be working with you to ensure the best outcome in every situation. We have your best interests at heart. We love you. I don't know what made me get this deck, because when I was getting this deck, I was like, this is not a tarot deck. This is not really an oracle deck. This is my sweetest deck. I feel like the energy of Mother herself is attached to this deck. And when I got my cards, I feel like she was the one that directed me to get what cards to get, because she had specific things that she wanted to say just to me. And this is a deck that I choose to share with my video on my videos, because I feel like there are specific things that people need to hear. And I don't know what people need to hear, but this is like the ultimate encouragement ever. And this one came up and I feel like reading it too. So it says, learn to ride the waves of life. When faced with difficult times, you can either fight against the current or go with it. So ask yourself, what is to gain by depleting your energy and fighting against it? Don't do that to yourself. This used to come up a lot with me in the beginning of the year, because I wanted my new beginning and my new cycle to start right away. And God's like, no, you're waiting. You're not making any moves. But I'm like, oh my God, but this, but that, but that, but that, but that. And it's like, it wasn't time. And now I can see why I had to wait. I wasn't ready. I wasn't remotely ready. I had to learn so much. I had to experience things. I had to see things. I had to have things happen. And Spirit was always like, you're wasting your energy constantly. Like, I used to wake up so early and exhaust myself and, excuse me, like always be tired. And they used to constantly tell me, like, you're exhausting yourself, relax. And there was another card that I used to get that used to say, if you're planting something, you can't keep turning around and checking every day when it's gonna sprout. It's not the correct season. And I know that as someone who plants, is that you cannot plant something in June and be expecting it to sprout in July. Harvest is in September. It doesn't matter what you do or how you did it. You're harvesting in September. That is the season. That is how it works. End of story. It's like that. That's how your life is, and that's how the phases are. It's the harvest is when the harvest is. That's when you're going to get the fruit, not before. So I want to thank you guys that hung in there with me. Have a good night. And again, please, if you guys can like the video for me, that would genuinely help my engagement. And have yourself a great night.